with exclusive right to represent buyer. Basically, a lot of people, when they get to this is a legally binding contract that is understood, seek competent advice before signing. Let's just face it, you just met a lot of these people that are nervous. So I have been able to, not one person in 17 years has never refused to sign it. And I will tell you why. It's a little trick I learned in 2004, and they will always sign it. And this is what you do. Say, well, I'm not going to sign this. And you say, you know, I understand your hesitancy. It's not in a buyer broker agreement. But for me to be able to show you property and walk through the threshold of the door, I really need this signed because you have no representation without the signature. And I certainly don't want to represent the seller who I don't even know. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll make this applicable to today only. These are the people that do not want to sign. So we're going to date it for today. We're going to expire it from midnight tonight. If at the end of the day, you feel comfortable in working with me, and I feel comfortable in working with you, we will extend it. How does that sound? I have never had somebody say, okay, that's workable. They're just nervous to bind themselves to you because you haven't vetted them yet. They haven't vetted you yet. You need to still date, get to know each other, period. At the end of the day, you're going to treat them so well. They're going to absolutely love you. And then you're going to mark that extended day. You're going to make it 3 to 6 months out, and you're going to get them in an issue. You don't even have to do a new one. Okay? So that's for those saying, oh, they won't sign it. You just fixed it. Okay? All right. So moving forward, I'm going to skip a lot of this in essence of time, but let's just jump down to compensation. I have always checked the second box and where it says the compensation offered by the listing firm or by a seller to a buyer's broker on property acquired by buyer, but such compensation shall not be less than blank. I have always put 2.5%. The reason why, that covers me if we start to look for new construction. New construction is typically 2.5%. It's a 5% list, 2.5, 2.5. So I don't have to go back and modify. This does not mean if the MLS is offering 3% commission that all of a sudden you only have to collect 2.5%. Remember, this is a document that is between you and the buyer, the broker and the buyer, the broker and the buyer. This is not something you normally have to share. If another agent asks you to show it to you, I want you to call our broker, Carol Massey, and say, why are they asking for a document that is between our broker and our buyer? It is none of their business. If they say, well, we're only paying compensation if you're buyer broker, say we haven't, we'll send you an email, we haven't. So if they need this, you either talk to me or Carol or Teresa. They don't need it. It's just like another broker does not need to see our listing agreement. The listing agreement is between whom? The seller and the broker. Okay? All right, so that just took care of all of that. This little box down here that says blank days after the expiration of this agreement. I like to put 60. Some people get very nervous, but why will this protect you? Let's say that the buyer signed this and you showed them a house and they went to a house that's getting ready to go on the market. They said, I'm getting ready to, my buyer broker's getting ready to expire and I'm going to ditch my agent and I just want to work with you and blah, 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 blah. No side deals. You've worked your butt off. So that, if you show them that house and your buyer broker expires, you still earn a commission with the exception, and this you're not gonna like, but it's a fact. If they relist it with another broker, this is dead. You'll understand that, okay? If you've shown it and it's still listed, it's still good. So they can't go behind after it's expired, you can still go for your commission. But same with the listing agreement. I like to tie all this together. If somebody showed the property, XYZ showed your house, and it was the last day of your listing, and they came back 3 days later, and it was listed with ABC, who gets that commission, unfortunately? The new company. It sucks. So that's why, if you know something's expiring, you say, can you please hurry up and bring me the offer tonight? Because you already know they signed a listing agreement with another company.
What I have this going on right now, it's a land listing. And my feeling is there's some family members that don't want to be on board, and they stonewall it. And they refuse to sign. There's 3 or 4 members of the family who want to sell this property, and there's one who doesn't want to sell for that price. And my feeling is they're going to wait until the listing agreement runs out, and then they're going to approach that person who they now know wants the land in the neighborhood, and they won't have to pay the commission. That's what my feeling is. So even if they wait that period of time after the agreement is over with, could we still get a commission if we know that it's been sold within?
If you showed the property to the particular client, and it wasn't relisted, but it depends how good your broker is and will they go after that. But the part where one person in the family doesn't want to do anything, good luck.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, unfortunate.
I know. They just don't want to pay the commission. They told me that. So we just don't feel like we want to pay it.
So I will say something else in the value of what you do. Thank you. It's Teresa mentioned cutting commission and stuff. I just have to say this because this is another thing. Somebody starts asking you to cut commission, say, I just have one question for you, and just help me out. If you were going in for heart surgery, would you sit down with your surgeon and start negotiating his prices? Oh my gosh, no, I would never do that. Well, I'm going to work really, really hard for you, so consider me your heart surgeon. And people, it makes them think. Of course, I wouldn't negotiate with the person getting me. But people just don't think this. You got to be valued, right? But get with me off cuff, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, second page. Everybody does things electronically. Please convince. Some people will not sign this because they're very old school and they don't even have a computer, so they're probably not going to sign that. But number 10, a lot of people miss. When you're agreeing for electronic signatures here, you're agreeing moving forward in this transaction, you're agreeing to electronic signatures. So try to get everybody that's on the buyer broker. And I kind of want to go back to that. If it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, and they're buying the house together, put them both on here. Nothing will burn your potatoes so much if the girlfriend signs this and the boyfriend didn't, and then they went and bought from another company and they put it in the boy's name and you forgot to get boyfriend to sign this too. So make sure you get everybody who you're showing property to on the buyer broker. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on this? I usually do talk about dual agency and designated agency here, just so they're not surprised, to kind of explain what's going on. So the best way I do it is this. Mr. Buyer, we're going to be showing a lot of properties. we might come upon, especially in Danville, it's a little smaller, we might come upon a situation where a house comes on the market and it's my listing. How do you feel about that? Because I have to have the same conversation with the seller. I have to ask the seller, what if I have a buyer that I've had a buyer broker with, and then you get the listing? How do you feel about that? How do you feel about me representing the transaction for both parties? Because I have to explain something to you. I've become a little puppet in the situation. I could give very limited advice. Even though you're my seller and they're my buyer, I can't instruct them what you've told me. It's both confidential situations. So how do you feel about that? Oh, you feel a little nervous? Well, this is what we'll do. We have designated agency. I will assign somebody in my office to handle writing up the offer since I have that listing in that scenario. You feel good about that? Good. And then you work out a referral. They don't need to know what's going on, but you work out that amongst the office, okay? But don't call another company when we have plenty of Keller Williams agents right here that can do the designated agency part. And I know Kim and Michelle have done this a couple times, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
In those scenarios.
Most of the time, I'll be honest, though, I have a lot of problem with people letting me represent. Well, not say represent their sides, you are really a puppet, and you have to explain to them that you cannot advise them.
Right.
But most of the time, people, don't seem to have a hard time with it, but yeah.
It's all in the presentation, I think.
It is.
So, the residential property disclosure statement. If y'all don't listen to anything else I say, please listen to this. I've had a lot of experiences amongst different brokerages, and I was at a brokerage where we had a surprise audit from Deepcore walk in our door. And they actually walk in and they lock your doors. And they come in and they look at files. And one of the things that they look for is this old thing called the residential property disclosure statement. And this is what they're looking for. The buyer's signature and date can never, ever, under no circumstances, can be prior to the seller. Because this is not a buyer disclosure. This is a disclosure that the seller provides to the buyer. So if it's missing when you're writing an offer and they didn't upload it in the MLS, we as good buyer agents are going to call the listing agent and say, would you please provide the property disclosure? Under no circumstances do you provide it for them and have your buyer sign it first. If you want your license to be almost revoked, start doing that, because they will suspend your license until you have some education. So you must get the seller, this is a seller disclosure, lead-based paint, 1978 and prior, January 1st, 1978. Can a buyer sign the lead-based paint for the seller? No. How do they know they don't own that house? That is a seller disclosure that must be signed by the seller prior to the buyer. So those are two federal, one's federal, lead-based paint is federal. This one is Virginia, it's Virginia law. So make sure you never, ever, ever provide that to your buyer first, okay? And if they don't have it, in essence of writing the contract, you click in the box that it's not attached, and then go send your offer, okay? We're gonna go to the next page.
So they don't have to, there's not, North Carolina has one where everything's listed and you check off whether there's representation, you know something about it. Virginia is.
No, that ended years ago. This is a buyer beware state.
Okay, yeah.
And they're making no representations, misunderstand anything, but the seller signing this and they're saying, okay, Mr. Buyer,
So they
you
don't
do
have-
your due diligence.
So they don't disclose like how old the roof is?
No. No. No,
how the water heater is?
No.
Due diligence,
Can they?
buyer
No.
beware.
buyer
Well,
beware.
you can disclose it, but you don't have to as a seller. It's a buyer beware state. The buyer has to do all their own research to figure out if the property is.
Unless there's a material
Right.
known defect and you disclose that in your MLS under agent remarks. Okay, so let's go to the next 4 pages. Guys, some brokerages are missing the boat. Keller Williams, we are not, and we are not. I do sit on the risk management committee for the state of Virginia. And if you are ever audited, you have to prove as the agent, not necessarily the company, you have to prove that your buyer has been made aware of what's behind the click. So for an example, if you're sending this through DocuSign, through Authentisign, or any electronic, they have to know what's behind the click. So you have to prove that they've seen it. What better proof is to print it out and have them initial every page. So what I did when I listed and sold, I don't list and sell now because I don't compete with agents as the team leader at Keller Williams. But what I do at the buyer broker agreement stage, when you're already getting them to sign and you're just starting to go out to show property, I take the RPP2 is what we call it. These are the 4 pages. And I have them sign the buyer broker, and I have them sign all 4 and initial every one of these pages right then. So they have time to know what they're looking for. And when we get to the house, I already have these 4 pages signed with my buyer broker. Because this is showing as a buyer's agent, Mr. Buyer, these are some things you need to look for in Virginia. This is saying that you need to look at condition, adjacent parcels, if it's in a historic district, if it's in an RPA, Resource Protection Act, if it's sexual offenders, you're giving them all this stuff in your buyer consultant presentation, or when they sign the buyer paper. It's wonderful. You'll never have to worry if they didn't sign it, because you did it up front. And then when you go on a contract, now all you need is what? This page that was provided by whom? The seller, the listing agent. So it's one way of getting this done. What? Oh, you're so fun. So guys, in no particular order, we have wiring fraud advisory is real. This is just an extra step to protect you. We do E&O here and cyber E&O for you at only $250 per year. We get a mass policy because Keller Williams is so large. So our E&O is fairly cheap in your coverage. So just make sure you get them to sign this. So if they ever receive any kind of email about where to wire money, make sure they verify by calling the title company. Did you just send me this? Because wire fraud is still real. There's hackers, okay? Affiliated business disclosure. If you work at Keller Williams, we have an affiliation with Pike Title. Doesn't mean they have to close with Pike Title. This is just saying you need to sign this to show that our agency has an affiliation and this is for our Foxconn. Doesn't mean you're working on it, okay? Now let's go to the contract of purchase. So, couple things. Couple things that drives me bananas. You will learn quickly. Hi, this is Alice at Keller Williams. I'm sending you over a contract. Well, that's amazing. Can you really send over a contract? It is not a contract until it's ratified, okay? So change that verbiage and say, I'm sending over an offer, okay? So a contract's not a contract until all initials have been signed, dated, and everything. It's not a contract, okay? It's contract ratification. All right, purchase is made of, we know the date, seller, with the seller's name, how it is in the tax records. That's how you want the seller's name. The purchaser, everybody who's going to be a purchaser. Now, I've had some situations where two people are buying a house and one person is going to be on the loan. Some talk to your lender here. Some lenders just want the buyer that's going to be on the mortgage here, and then you can do an amendment later to add them for the title search after it's all started going through underwriting. But this is a lender question. I personally like to put all purchasers here unless the lender tells me not to. So just beware, some lenders are funny. This is where you say who's representing whom, okay? The real property, it'd be the city of or the county of. So if it's Pennsylvania County, if it's Franklin County, or the city of Danville. And then you put the exact what's in that tax record. So it might say block 1, section 2, 904.2, you know, put that there, and then more commonly known as the address. Okay. Personal property. Make sure you're looking at this verbiage in here. Again, some lenders, and depending on the loan product, this is why you have to be in cahoots with your lender. Some FHA products, they don't want you putting shed, all this stuff in here. They're probably okay with refrigerator and kitchen. And there's a reason I just said that. And washer dryer, but a whole bunch of furniture and stuff like that. Do a bill of sale, personal property. There's a form for that. And that's
Most of them I work with around here locally, I will say, I don't put anything on personal property on the contract.
so you do even refrigerator and kitchen on a bill of sale. That's
Well,
perfect.
I don't use the bill of sale, we usually don't use those here either, but I do use the personal property agreement. Yeah.
The personal
Everything
property
on that.
addendum.
Yeah,
Okay, so
they're just funny about it, so most of the time, just so I don't have to worry about it.
okay.
Yeah.
So talking about personal property, I mentioned refrigerator and kitchen. When you're writing and listing personal property, guys, everybody's just not very honest, unfortunately. And if you have a house that has a fairly GE profile, $2,000 refrigerator, and they happen to have a refrigerator in the garage, and you just listed refrigerator, there has been sometimes you go to walk through and there's a refrigerator, all right, but it's the one that was in the garage. Be specific. Be specific for your buyers. Make sure you're putting.
In North Carolina, we always had to write the serial number on that washer, dryer, refrigerator.
Well, that's a little excessive, but hey, at least that's protected.
Get switched.
I'm just saying,
Yeah,
and,
more detail with that.
and another thing, some of these newer homes and newer construction, they don't use those builder grade mirrors anymore. They use gorgeous framed mirrors. Do you know a framed mirror is on a hook? Do you know that's personal property? So if you're going through a home and you expect those mirrors in the bathroom to convey, please list it on the personal property addendum as mirrors in the bathroom to convey, because nothing's more upsetting when you go to walk through and the mirrors are all gone out of the bathroom, and guess who ends up paying for that? The agent does. $500 in mirrors because they can't even brush their teeth or looking at a wall. So think what is personal property? If it's on a hook and can be removed, personal property. A TV stand that's on the TV stand conveys. But does the TV? Not unless you wrote it. So be really, really careful if it's attached or not attached. That's usually the main cue. Personal property or not.
That's the TV thing's a good point to tell sellers too, that they need to leave the mounts. Sometimes.
Yeah, you have to leave the mounts.
You're supposed to leave the mounts, or if you're not, you need to let the buyer know, and they're also going to be patched and painted.
Yeah.
So,
So, purchase price. Of course, that's going to be a purchase price. You write it out on the first line, you put it in on the second line. Guys, this is huge. When your buyer is getting a loan, please, oh, please, oh, please, fill this all out as most completely as you can. So if you just check that box and say it, I'm gonna obtain a conventional loan, okay? And for how much? Well, let's say they're putting 20% down of a $300,000 purchase. So how much are they gonna borrow? 20% down, they're putting 20% down. They're borrowing 240,000. So put in 240,000 right there, or 80% of the purchase price. Make sure you ask your lender, this is where your lender is your best friend, not to exceed what? So let's say they're getting like 3.5% interest rate, but they really want this house, but the lender says, Alice, listen to me carefully. If this goes over 3.6%, they're not going to qualify. And your little butt did not put 3.6% in here, and you just forgot. They said, you said you're going to obtain, and this is what you're getting. You didn't cap it at a particular interest rate. This is a finance contingency, but you're telling the listing agent and the seller it's a finance contingency up to what? So fill out this information as clear as possible, okay? And usually we don't see a lot of second trust anymore. Seller financing, I haven't seen that in so long. I don't even know. Other financing terms, if any closing costs, don't put it here. Is that where y'all put it, Kim? I put it.
I usually do put it there, they get closing costs covered. I don't put any other terms of it, but.
Some agents will put it in other terms. Some agents will put it here. I particularly will put it in other terms because I usually have a list of other terms and I want them all. So they didn't say, you snuck it in there and I didn't see it. And let me just say, if you do put it here, have your buyer's initial that right here, causing for an initial from the sellers right here, because you never want them to say they didn't see it, okay? So if you do put it here, make sure it's initial, because you're adding something that wasn't in the contract. Okay, deposit. At Keller Williams, we do not collect earnest money anymore.
Yeah.
So your deposit is going to be the attorney's office, or it's going to be the builder if it's new construction, or it's going to be the title company. So this is where you put it. Now, very, very, very important. Does this mean you do not have to be conscious and know that that check was delivered? Who is it on? So if you say we're going to collect $500 in escrow in the form of a check made within 5 days of the date that this was fully executed, made out to Pike Title, who has to make sure Pike Title receives that check within 5 days? The agent does, or you're still out of escrow. Even though we're not holding the deposit, you're still in violation. You have to notify the other agent that the escrow is not collected on time. Very important. So don't forget, just because we're not holding it, you still got to make sure it's collected. Okay? I usually ask the company to say, will you please send me an email if it is not, if you do not have it by 5 o'clock on the third day, if I'm not delivering it myself. And I put 5 days. So that gives me 2 days to do what? Mr. Buyer, by title has not received your, we need that escrow. Okay. All right. Down. Financing, contingent upon purchase and delivering a written commitment or commitments. Okay. B, now, if you're a seller, do you want this filled in? If you're a seller, do you want this filled in? Absolutely yes, because if you read this paragraph and that B is not filled in and you're the listing agent, you are giving them all the way to closing to give you loan full approval. If you're the buyer's agent, you would like to sneak it in and not fill it in
I do, for my buyers,
for your buyers.
for my buyers.
But if you're a very good, smart listing agent and you get the offer and that sucker's not filled in, say, hey Alice, nice try, sweetie, but we need at least 3 weeks here, or we're putting the sucker back on the market. Because we're not holding our house hostage for 6 weeks. So we believe you can get all this loan approval, all this stuff done by 3 weeks from today. So we're gonna counter and we're gonna put a date there. Okay? All right. So jumping down, this is stuff you can read on your own. Purchaser does or does not intend to occupy the property as a primary residence. Why is F so important? Why do y'all think F is so important?
Your loan, for one thing.
This is for the lender. This is really has nothing to do with the seller at all. This is the lender and what kind, is this an investment property? What kind of loan? Is it a second home? Et cetera, et cetera. There's different rates for different scenarios. So that is very important to fill out. VA FHA loan, there's some verbiage in there. I just learned something new. Guys, if y'all are working with somebody that ever has had a student loan, tell their lender if it's FHA, VHDA, VA, USDA. So basically any government-backed loan, there is what they call a CAVRS report. And they typically will not run CAVRS until all the way at the end of underwriting. If you know your buyer has had a student loan, ask your lender to run their CAVRS up front. Because if they are on the CAVRS report and have to do a rehabilitation on the loan, and it's CAIVRS, they will not close. Okay? They will not be able to get the house if they are on CAVRS unless they completely pay off that student loan before closing. It's the only way they can get it. If they do a rehabilitation loan, they have to wait 9 months to qualify to buy on a government-backed loan. Okay, I know that's a little bit more than you're needed to know, but it's important these days. If you know your buyer's got a student loan and you're still working on that. Loan fee, settlement possession. Can you ever put to be determined here?
Not supposed to.
It is not, it cannot be a contract if you put to be determined. Let me explain to you why. A contract has to have a beginning and an end date. So if it is subject to sale of another house, I don't care. You guess, you put a guess thing here. You have to have a begin date and an end date for it to be a ratified contract. So if you know you're just getting ready to list a house, say, okay, we're gonna close in 2 months and a week, but it's subject to change, but you gotta have a real date. Can't need to be, there is no to be determined in a settlement possession, right? This is an on or about contract. What does that mean exactly? Who knows? This will be good for you to know in Virginia. What does on or about mean? Who's been doing real estate a little bit?
Around that time.
Okay? Does that mean if I put on or about November 30th, and for some reason it didn't close November 30th, does that mean the seller can put this house back on the market?
No.
No. What would change? What would need to be said if that was a fact? Time of the essence contract. So if this is a time of the essence situation, why would you need a time of the essence? I'm going to give you an example. 1031 exchange. A 1031 exchange is a time of an essence contract. You have to close on or before this date. Time is of the essence. That would be a situation where you would want to change these words. Okay, but on or about, it could be 3 weeks, and you're still in contract. Okay.
In North Carolina, you can go 7 days past the settlement date and still be okay without having to change the date. So in Virginia, that is not something that happens.
If you start to know it's going to be excessive of a week or so, I would do an amendment to the contract. And this is good that I'm saying this. Does anybody know the difference between an amendment and an addendum?
An amendment and a change in a contract, and an addendum is something that's added.
Exactly. Monica had it. So think of the word addendum, and the first 3 letters is ADD, add. So if you're adding something that was never there to begin with, an addendum. If it's an amendment, you're making a change to what's there. So we're going to amend the settlement closing date to now be from November 30th to December 17th. And everybody sign. You're amending. Okay. And addendum to the contract, we are adding a purchaser that wasn't normal, we're not changing the names. We're adding a third purchaser. Maybe mom or dad, because of financial reasons, had to be added. Now you're gonna add a third name to the contract. Some people would still amend it and say, we're amending purchasers to now read. So that, sometimes you might want that because you're changing that. But, all right, expenses, probations, rollback taxes. B, rollback taxes shall be paid as follows. I just always put the same thing. Paid by seller if any, or paid by seller if applicable. Okay? If they ask, what does that mean? Just say, that means if the seller is not up to date on paying their taxes on this house, it's going to come up at closing, and you don't want to be stuck with that bill. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Paid by seller if applicable. I don't see that often. That's what that means. Just going through the things that are important. Okay, now we're getting to some nitty gritty that y'all need to know. I'm going to read number 14. Wood infestation inspection and report. Prior to settlement, seller, every locality is different depending on the contract. Seller shall provide a purchaser report dated not more than 30 days prior to date of settlement. I'm going to stop right there. You have November 30th in the contract. We already know it's an order about contract. Do you want your termite guy doing your WDI report on November 1? 2 weeks, 2-week rule. Do it 2 weeks in case there's a delay. You don't want them going out there and paying for yet another inspection because it went past 30 days. I hate this 30-day rule. I really think they should change it to 60. I've been on forms committees through Virginia Realtors and they haven't changed it yet, but I'm still working on it. But most brokers, the 30-day is crazy because that little thing right there can hold up closing, and it was delayed and now it's 31 days and not under, we need another termite inspection. And you can't get out there for a week and the mover people are already the movers are coming. So, just rule of thumb, try to 2 weeks from the closing, buy yourself some time. And don't forget to order it. Put it in your phone, make sure, Siri, make sure I order the home, 2 weeks, make sure, because yes, I've been there, done that. It's 3 days in front of closing, lender's calling, buyer's agent's calling, house, my lender hasn't seen the termite inspection. I'm like, let's forget to order it. So don't be an ass, make sure you do it. So have a good assistant to do it for you. Title, so number 14, 15, and 16, you're gonna see all of these again in the remediation limit. So equipment condition and inspection. This is very, very important, and y'all can read this on your own because it's a lot, but I want you to look at C. If purchaser's obligations under this contract are not contingent on a home inspection, they waived it. They're like, y'all have written 11 offers, everybody is crazy, and I'm just gonna waive the home inspection to get the house. That's hard, but it's happening. But if it's not, what does paragraph C still allow the buyers to do? A walkthrough. So I'm going to read this out loud so y'all know. So they waived the home inspection. The seller still needs to warrant that all appliances, heating and cooling equipment, plumbing, including septic system, electric systems, will be in working condition at the time of settlement or of the purchaser's occupancy, whichever occurs first. Purchaser and purchaser's agent, inspectors, engineers shall have the right to conduct a pre-occupancy or pre-settlement inspection walkthrough to verify the condition of the property conforms to this contract, that no material damage or changes necessitating repair have occurred after the date of this contract. Seller's obligations in this regard are limited by the remediation limit. So, jumping over, put your little hand there, jump over to 18 for me. And then well was included. So look at 18. In the event in the cost of fulfilling seller's obligations set forth in paragraph 15, title, 16, equipment, condition and inspection, and well, the remediation limit is, if you leave it blank, it's $1,000. So if you're selling a $500,000 house, would you probably leave it blank? I usually do at least that $1,500 for over $100,000. So I usually do on a $250,000 house, about $2,500, especially if they have a well inside. But that's the remediation limit. Has nothing, ladies, has nothing to do with the home inspection. If they get a home inspection, that is separate. But remember the situation, if they did not get a home inspection, it applies. So, Mr. and Mrs. Smith waived their home inspection. You got to walk through. Walkthroughs are so important. There's a walkthrough form here for you too. You get to walk through, and lo and behold, the stove didn't work. 3 of the 4 burners work. One of them doesn't work. Is the seller, because you waived your home inspection, does the seller have to fix them? Yep. Unless they had a situation with the termite that cost them $500, and they had a blip on their title that cost them $500. Well, they've already reached the remediation limit. They can technically come back and say, hey, here's my invoices. We're already at the remediation limit just on the well and the septic. Sorry. Now, can the buyer walk? Yeah, because you're at remediation, they can't walk, because the remediation limit is what you set forth in there. So that's why if it's one well and septic, I would add a little higher money in there to protect, just in case. Most people leave it blank. It just defies logic. But most people do. And why? Because it's always done that way. Well, that's not really protecting your buyers. But that's what the remediation limit for. Some agents have it in their head. You just asked for $3,000 in the home inspection report, and our remediation limit is $1,000. Completely doesn't. It has not. They're not reading their contract. They're not reading what it says. That only applies if you didn't get the home inspection. That's why the home inspection is so important. Your buyers are more protected if a whole bunch of litany of things starts adding up. Okay. All right. Purchaser's inspection, this is where they waive. They're making them initial now, because why are they making you do that on the septic in the home inspection? Because they want the buyer agent to have a conversation with the buyer. That's why you see all these initials now. It used to be a checkbox, no initials. You're starting to see added initials because they're saying, my agent didn't discuss this with me. They want to put it back on the agent. This is Pandora's box right here. Have the conversation of how important is how the contract works. Okay, we're going to jump down. They have the choice of their own settlement. Mechanics liens. Guys, this is going to come up. People always want to know how to save money. What you don't ever want to suggest and coming out of your mouth as a buyer's agent is for them to waive owner's title insurance. Okay, owner's title is so important not to have broken chain of title on that house. It's also on the land. An example, this happened in Richmond. A developer bought all this land and built all these new construction houses. Okay, all these people were like, it's a brand new house. Nobody's ever owned it before. I'm not getting owner's titles insurance. That doesn't even make sense. What do you think happened to that 36 house development? And missing air came out of the woodworks on the land. The ones that had owner's title insurance were covered in all that litigation. This went through the courts for 3 years, cost people $30,000 to $50,000 to defend their house. People with owner's title didn't pay a dime. It goes with the land. I don't care how much it is. Get owner's title insurance. And by the way, people that sell that house and moved away, they were in the lawsuit too, because it's called broken chain of title. It's anybody who's owned it, they go after them. So you could have sold that house, bought it, and sold it a year later, moved to Georgia. The lawsuit happened 5 years later, you're in the lawsuit because you own the house. Because if they go.
But if the buyer that owned that, or the seller who owned the house, if they had title insurance.
It only protects them. If the title insurance protects the purchaser, not the house.
Wow.
Yep. So very, very important. You tell my mom worked at a law firm.
That's good.
I learned a lot of stuff from my mother working at a law firm. Get to see it all. Condo disclosures. Do you have a lot of condos here? Okay, they stink. They're hard. They're crazy. It is the craziest thing. There's a condo certificate and then an HOA certificate. They're two different things. So that you could do a whole class from an attorney on condos. when I went out showing property and I saw it was a condo, I would just hand them a booklet on condo disclosures because it's crazy what they have to do. Different time frames and everything. Property Owners Association, that law changed about a year ago. It used to be 3 days. Now they give you the luxury of 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. You pick how much you need for review. So if you have an out-of-state buyer and you're shipping a book or something like that, put the full 7 days in there, okay? But Property Owners Association this is a free buyer walk. Now, something else y'all might not know. Let's say that let's say you're the buyer's agent, you ratify a contract, it has an HOA, you get through the home inspection, they're offering to do everything you want, but your people they have buyer's remorse, they don't want it. And the POA hasn't been delivered yet. You don't even have it yet. Can you send over a termination release before you've even received it? Yes, you can. You can. Because your contract says they have time to review, but aren't you doing, and this is what you do when you send over the release over and termination, you say, listen, my buyers are getting out anyway on the POA because that's their right. I thought you would love me as an agent to get your house back on the market quick. But I'm sending it now so we don't even have to wait for it. But you can't send it in advance because that is your free out. Don't miss your dates though. Don't miss your dates. If you got 3 days in there and it's over 3 days and there is no outs, you're buying a house or you're in default, okay? Lead-based paint, that's what I talked about. Who listened to me? Who provides this disclosure? Yeah, and if it's not attached and the house was built in 1964, can you provide it and have the buyers sign it over with your offer? No. Absolutely not. Okay, you're typically going to see BII checked here. A typical risk assessment inspection for lead-based paint is typically $1,100 to $1,200. I just say, guys, they could have lead-based paint. Basically, are your children going to be chewing on windowsills? If so, we probably need to start looking at property over 1978. So let's just avoid all these issues. But that's basically what the whole thing was. Children were dying because they were chewing on windowsills. Okay? So, disclosure of the Property Act. Is it or is not attached? Remember, if you really want to hurry and get it in and they haven't provided, say it's not attached, but I would write in, buyer would still like it or something initial. It's not attached for us to make the offer, but we're waiting for the seller to provide. Write it.
A lot of times it's not in the MLS.
I'm telling you.
You do have to request it.
Well, when you see, if it's your listing and you haven't provided it, shame on you. Upload it. And if it comes over without it, that is not your problem. The law says you must provide it. And if you provided it as an attachment in the MLS, you have provided it. Unless they've come off the street and then it's your due diligence to provide it to you back. Okay? Miscellaneous. Non-binding mediation. This is a non-binding mediation state. We'd like you to try to mutually agree on a mediator before going straight to court. But let's just face it, most people are so litigious, they just want to go straight to court. So that happens. So other terms, some of the things that you'll see in other terms. Well, it could be seller to provide up to $6,000 in closing costs to include prepayments, loan fees, points, surveys, any other associated closing costs for the purchaser. I put everything in there but the kitchen sink.
Look where you would also put like, if it's contingent on a home sale of some sort.
I would put, sale consummation, agreement is attached, or addendum is attached. I would put, buyer's agent is related to purchaser. If it's in the MLS, listing agent is related to seller, you must put that in here. Listing agent is related to seller.
Do you not put that on the line before, where it says disclosure of real estate?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is required in this transaction. See, the contract in Lynchburg doesn't have that line.
Oh,
So we put in, see, I'm mixing that in the contract. So yeah, make sure you put that, if there's any relationships going on. Acceptance, be careful. Don't put too short of time. And then if they're presenting all offers on Wednesday at 6 and you put Tuesday at 3, did you help your buyer out at all? So be mindful of when they're going to be presenting the offer, but don't give them a week either. You know, make them present it. Electronic signatures, everybody signs here. See if I can start doing negotiations back and forth as buyer and seller on this offer. All right, so purchasers and sellers sign. See this little receipt of deposit back here? You might not have that yet. So you wouldn't, unless you have it in your hand to deliver it, don't sign that yet. Okay, now, you send over the offer, and your buyer goes, "Kirsty, I just found another house I want to see. I want to go see it today." And you've already presented the offer, and you run show the other house. And they go, "I really want this one instead." Are you writing up another offer? What are you gonna do?
Draw this one first.
And how do you do it, withdraw? What's the fastest, easiest way to withdraw this offer?
Call the other agent.
No,
Addendum?
no,
Okay.
you're gonna go to the first page of the purchase contract. You're gonna write a line, and you're gonna put withdrawal, and you're gonna get your buyer's initials. T-box, all buyer's initials, and you're gonna date it, and you're gonna put the time. And you are going to scan that page over, you're gonna text them, you're gonna email them, then you're gonna say, "We have withdrawn our offer." I have seen agents say, you say, "Hey, we're withdrawing our offer," but you didn't sign anything. Next thing you know, they signed it as is. You're in a purchase contract. It's your word against theirs. So you're gonna withdraw, initials, date, and what's the most important thing? Date and time, date and time, date and time. So you're gonna withdraw, and as soon as you send it, you can start writing your other offer.
Just on the first page.
First page, that's all you do. Big old withdrawal.
And that's the only page you need to send.
That's it. Any other questions on the purchase contract? Okay, let's say there's a change to the purchase price. You're gonna change the line where you wrote, you're gonna change the number you wrote, you're gonna subtract, you're gonna do your T-box, all initials, and what is important here? Date it, date your initials. The attorney needs to know the sequence of events of when things were initialed. And too many people forget to date those initials. Were the initials the original time you wrote the offer, or were the initials because it was a counter offer? Well, if you don't date the thing, who's gonna know? So date those initials. Very important. What time is it, anybody?
It's going on 4.
Okay. Y'all feel like you learned anything? Okay. Fill out as much information back here. That in Charlottesville, you don't have this page all filled out. The title company will send it back and say, you need all this filled out? They need your license number, they need it all. So, don't know why the walkthrough is placed right here, but, this is just a walkthrough. Guys, please be doing walkthroughs. Nothing's worse than you didn't go to walk through and they go to move in the refrigerator in the kitchen, that did convey, they took it with them. And you closed? Do you think you're gonna get a refrigerator after you signed? No. That deed recorded at the courthouse, null and void whatever was in the contract. Did y'all know that? Your deed is now the gospel. It doesn't fold into the deed. Contract doesn't fold into the deed. It is now your house. So that's why if the house floods, the first night you're in it, it's your homeowner's insurance taking care of the house, not the seller's. That, thank God, things happen. Whole house burnt down in Williamsburg an hour after closing. Yeah, happened. So this, I put this in here for designated agency. So there is a dual agency if you're representing both, which the form didn't make it in both. But this is designated if you're selling Kim's listing, make sure you have this. You're going to be the designated agency for the buyer, and then Kim's the designated agent for the seller. So that's very, very important for that disclosure. This home inspection contingency addendum, guys, again, very, very, very important. When I say don't miss the dates. If you say we're going to do it 10 days after ratification, that means you're going to inspect it and send over the repair request addendum all within those 10 days. So if you already know the home inspector, and I usually call a home inspector when I'm writing an offer, and I'm like, dude, what's your next week look like? Alice, I can't, I'm 14 days out. You gotta call somebody else. Next person, I'm 10 days out. Well, I'm gonna put 14, take the guy that's 10 days out, and I'm gonna explain to the listing agent, listen, I called 3 home inspectors. This is the best I could do. That's what's 14 days. Okay? So, be nice with who you're presenting the offer to. Pick up the phone. Don't have behind email and a text. Have a conversation. If you have any questions, let's talk about it before you present it to your seller. There must be reasons I put things in here. People appreciate that. Negotiation period, I typically put 3. Purchaser's election, I typically put 3. In the event the purchaser terminates the contract under the terms of this addendum, a release shall be signed by both parties, and the deposit should be returned to, yeah, if you represent that buyer, make sure you get purchase. Okay, septic inspection, that honestly, that could be a whole other class. Make sure you know what you're doing there. There's the sale of personal property. And then this is another Keller Williams internal form at the back. Just sign it, have them sign it. That's all I have for today. I know it's a lot. No, that is in North Carolina and Florida.
So, I mean, they'll
That the seller gets to keep if you back out. Yeah, we do not. That's a Florida and North Carolina
I mean, Virginia has plenty of other people
thing.
that
Right,
take place in
right.
a lot of things, but,
What questions are y'all seeing? What are y'all seeing? Y'all already told me that they don't, the residential property disclosure is not attached in your home. You're gonna hound them for it. What else? You think Danville specific? Behind the times?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll come down and teach this for the entire association.
But just like, I mean, I know Ken has mentioned the Lynchburg MLS, like if you don't put closed when your property closes, you can get a fine.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, think about it, there's properties that have been pending for years in the MLS that really closed years ago, but no one closed it, which isn't a contract issue, but just, you know.
Don't you have an MLS committee?
But
So they just made me the MLS committee chair of Lynchburg next year. And I'm like, are you sure that you know what you're getting into? I said, I'm not always nice. I like my clients.
You saw how long it took the lady from NAFTA to break down NAFTA.
Hmm.
She's so.
You can turn that off. All right.